Hey, are we ready this morning to forgive? It's a big ask. Do I need to?
No, you just.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to start with the story. So there were two brothers who went to see a holy man. And they went to see the holy man because their consciousness were so burdened by things that they had done in the past. So they climb up high on this mountain and they go meet with the guru. And they're sitting there in front of him and they go, "Why are you here?" And then first brother says, "Well, I'm here because I have done something very grievous to another human being. And I need to find forgiveness for what I have done." The second brother says to the guru, "Well, I'm here because I have committed numerous wrongs, but really they are all quite small." So the holy man looks at the young man and he nods his head and he says, "Well, here's what you must do. You must go and bring me a stone for every grievance that you have done." So the two men go off in different directions and go up the hill. Find their stones. So the one brother finds the big boulder for his major wrongdoing against another human being. And the second brother fills his backpack with pebbles. They go back to the holy man. First brother drops his boulder down in front of the guru. Second brother gently puts his pack down with all of his pebbles in front of the guru. And the guru looks at them and he says, "Thank you for bringing those to me. Now, I want you to go back from where you came and replace them from where you took them. And as you go back, remember and walk in forgiveness." So the first young man picks up his boulder and goes back up to the hill, easily finds where he left it, drops it down. Second brother starts putting back all the pebbles you can imagine in his backpack. And he forgets where most of them belong. And so he goes back to the holy man and he says, "This is just too difficult. I gathered all the stones, but I don't know where I gathered them from." The holy man says to him, "You know, the wrongs that you do are like your pebbles. If a person has committed a great wrong, it lies like a heavy stone on his or her conscience and on her soul. But if there is true sorrow, there is forgiveness, and that load can be taken away. But if a person persists in doing small things that are wrong, he or she does not feel very guilty or shamed, or may even forget the deeds that they have done. So cannot seek forgiveness until they are ready to look at all of them. Seek forgiveness for all of them, and then lighten the load that all the pebbles make heavy on the soul." You see, said the holy man, the big wrongs we do are just as harmful to our soul as all the little ones. And you must go out and search for the places and return your pebbles and recall your wrongdoings to be free. Forgiveness. It's a big word. And it's hard. Jesus said we have to forgive 70 times 7, which means that it has to be continuous, right? And we know that it is very important for us, for our spiritual journey, for our spiritual well-being, to practice this art of forgiveness. We also know, probably talked about it all month, that forgiveness isn't for us, or for someone else, that forgiveness is only for ourselves. So even if we need to forgive somebody, they don't even need to know that we are in that process of forgiveness. Forgiveness is not forgiving out of a sense of obligation. I mean, it's a polite thing to do, right? We do it all the time in the store when we bump into somebody. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. That's a little different than feeling like you're obligated. It is not about forgiving out of a sense of righteousness. I am so good, I'm going to take the high road. I'm going to be the one who steps in and forgive you first. That whole thing. Forgiveness or pardoning. We do this a lot too. We bestow it on somebody, pardon them for something. But when we do that, do we really feel that? Do we really incorporate that forgiveness within us? Not so much. And the last one, and the last two are forgive and forget or making excuses. How many times have we made excuses for something, an act that someone else has done? That's not really forgiving, because we need to remember something that's really important about forgiveness. We never really truly forgive the act itself. We are forgiving the person for their mistake or their non-understanding of a situation, or even more importantly, that they know not what they do. You see, for me, the most important words that Jesus said were from the cross when he was dying. Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. Because most of the time that is the case. When we look at the world and when we look at all the egregious things that happen out there, the only way I can wrap my head around it is say, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. They are so separated from any kind of spiritual standing or principle that they know not what they do. So it's true. And we have all done wrong, and we have all wronged somebody else. And other people have wronged us. That's part of living, isn't it? It's part of learning. It's part of how we integrate our own mistakes and the mistakes of others into our life. But we can also learn to forgive. Because you see, I think forgiveness is truly just God's grace. God's grace. And we are forgiven unconditionally when we ask. And when we hold that deep sorrow for things that we have done. We can use Jesus's words. And we can say, divine love, help me forgive them. They know not what they do. Divine love, help me forgive. They know not what they do. Well, this afternoon, after our fellowship, we're going to return up here for our radical forgiveness ceremony. And how many of you just finished the book study? Oh, good, quite a few of you. That's great. It's a powerful book. I discovered the book many, many years ago, and when I did, it showed me a profound new way of looking at forgiveness. So let's talk about that. I found this quote the other day from the Center of Contemplation and Action, which is a daily little blurb that comes out every day from Richard Rohr. And this is from Mary Catherine Burge. This is our task: to live in just relationships with one another, to work at restoring to wholeness those people and relationships that they and others have broken, and to repair the best as they can what cannot be restored. You know, for me, the saddest thing that I see as a minister is when families are torn apart and brothers and sisters don't talk to each other, or children and their parents don't talk to each other, or somebody disowns someone else in their family. The pain that is caused by that is very deep. And maybe the actions that caused it were very, very egregious. But our real purpose is to find forgiveness in those things, to find a way to cross that bridge, to find a way to come back into wholeness, as this says, to restore to wholeness those relationships that they and others have broken. Many years ago, I did that with one of my brothers. We had a strange relationship our whole life. We just didn't talk much. And I made a trip to northern Michigan to visit him, and my whole purpose of that trip was to heal our woundedness that we had between us. And since then, things have changed because we sat down all night. And we just talked, and we talked about our memories. And we talked about growing up and our views of mom and dad. And it healed so much within us that we didn't even know had caused us to separate. So if there is someone in your family who you don't speak to, who doesn't speak to you, love them and see if you can't find a pathway back toward wholeness and brokenness. Holly Tipping says, forgiveness lovingly sees the imperfection inherent in human beings and recognizes the perfection in the imperfection. Who here is perfect? Right? Oh my gosh. Watch your point down. Truly, who here is perfect? What human being is perfect? What human being has walked through life without making major mistakes? None of us have. And we're all at the age now where we can begin to look back. We can find our way back into that wholeness. According to Holland, there are 3 types of forgiveness. The first one is extraordinary forgiveness. And extraordinary is an extraordinary capacity to forgive using traditional forgiveness, which I'll get to in a minute. But that's extremely rare. Very few people can do it. And it gives rise to and supports the idea that only special people can forgive at this level. I have a YouTube that I want to share with you. Now, I haven't been able to figure out how to get the picture on the screen, but I do have the audio. So I want you to listen. It's not the same as seeing the powerfulness in this moment, but listen to the voices here and the story behind it.
The murder of the 50-year-old mother in 2017 and the 2018 homicide of a 17-year-old boy was told by a judge that he'll never leave prison alive. But before he was taken away, he had to hear the heartbreaking statement of the mother of the teen that he killed. 24-hour News 8's Barton Peterson was in court. He has this story tonight. Barton.
O'Brien, today, Vincente Rodriguez Ortiz remained apparently unmoved by the statements of the family and the woman for whose homicide he entered a plea. But that all changed when he faced the mother of the teen he was convicted of killing. Rodriguez Ortiz was already charged with domestic violence against 50-year-old Lori Lundenberg in March of 2017 before he shot her in the head, according to police. But he would not be arrested for that crime until January 2018, when he was arrested for the shooting death of 17-year-old Andre Hawkins. Police said he made statements while questioned about the Hawkins slaying that provided evidence in the murder of Lundenberg. Today, before the judge handed down the life sentence, he had to hear from the mother of the teen he allegedly killed in a jealous rage. The grace displayed in words stunned those gathered in the Kent County Circuit Courtroom.
In order to get through this process, I had to forgive you, and I forgive you from the bottom of my heart. I pray for you because as a mother, you're a child to me, and in my heart, I have no anger or bitterness towards you. As a mom, I just want to hug you because I know that there's something that's not connected, that makes you feel so angry.
I just want to say, I'm sorry. Rodriguez Ortiz did not apologize to the Lunenburg family. His attorney told me that there are appealable issues in the murder conviction. And if appeals court overturns that,
So. Would you? Would you? It's difficult, right? There's very few people who have shown that kind of capacity to really forgive at that level. Okay, let's talk about traditional forgiveness. It's difficult. We want to. We say we want to. It's difficult sometimes. And it takes a long time. Sometimes we have to forgive someone over and over and over again. And we still don't release it from our subconscious mind. You see, when we hold on to unforgiveness, even when we're struggling through forgiveness, it is incorporated at a cellular level. People get sick by holding on to unforgiveness. I know my mother did. She hated my father so much after the divorce. She could never forgive, even on her deathbed, which just really crushed me. But then she ended up with cancer. And I say this because she held that in so long at such a deep level that it affects people. And they've proven this scientifically. It requires a lot of therapy. We go, we talk to somebody, counselor, tell them the story. We walk away, we think we feel better. We still don't. It's because it's judgmental. Traditional forgiveness is judgmental. And it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. Oops. It doesn't work because we have this need to forgive. We say something really bad happened to us. But what comes with that is condemnation. What comes with that when we run the story through our head over and over and over again is the need for restoration, restitution. How about revenge? Have you ever wished someone to have bad karma for something that they've done? Or you said to yourself, karma will get them. I'm gonna let this go. Right, that's kind of like the forgive and forget thing. But that's why it's so hard and that's why it doesn't work. Is because we still want to get back at them. We still want to see them suffer the way that they made us suffer. But radical forgiveness is different because radical forgiveness says to us that nothing really happened. Well, that's a hard concept, and the book spends a lot of time talking about how something never really happened. But the basis is that our life story is so wrapped around in what happens to us that we begin to hold it in. We see that radical forgiveness is non-judgmental. And when we begin to practice it, we can forgive instantaneously in that moment. So we don't have to carry all those little pebbles with us anymore. It takes minimal effort and I like intellect necessary. And it requires therapy. We can do it ourselves. Here's the thing. Colin Tipping gives us 5 things. 5 processes. And I'm going to go through these 5 by sharing with you one of my personal stories. So many years ago, myself, very, very close, dear friend of mine, decided to start a mortgage company. And we were Like we went through our plan, we got done. We raised the capital, we opened our doors, we were very successful. We ran our mortgage company together for several years. And then I was called into ministry. And was offered a job as associate minister at the Unity Church of Denver. So I went to my partner and I said, Denise, I'm sorry, but you need to buy me out. I'm leaving. She was so angry. She didn't believe in God at all. So she thought I was pretty crazy. Secondly, she was mad that I was going to leave her alone in this endeavor that we had worked so hard to build. So I said, well, let's just get together. Let's talk about what makes sense. You know, we'll come to a reasonable amount of money that you can pay me off. You can pay me over time. It'll be fine. No, it wasn't fine. First thing she did is when I walk out of the office is call an attorney. So then I had to call an attorney. And so you know how it is when you get a divorce, when you get attorneys involved. It makes things even worse, right? And it became so ugly and so horrible that we lost who we were together. We stopped speaking altogether. Matter of fact, our attorney said we couldn't speak to one another during the whole process. As it came down at the very end, I remember us sitting in a room, her signing over a check to me. And she called me some of the worst names on the planet. And then after that, here I was going off into ministry, right? So this is kind of an ironic thing. She, hear from my employees, starts trashing my reputation, starts changing passwords in the system, says Susan is the devil and all kinds of weird stuff. I mean, she was really angry. And I was really hurt because she had no understanding of the reason and my need to have to do what I did. So that's telling the story from the victim point of view. That's telling the story from how I remember all the intense feelings of the story, right? We tell the story, usually we're the victim of the story, and there's a lot of feelings and emotions that are attached to that story, correct? But then we can collapse the story. And when we begin to collapse the story, we begin to look at how that story has affected us in our lives. How it is that we carry this victimhood into our worldview. What does it look like? When we collapse the story, we can actually take a pause and turn around and walk in their shoes. And when I did that, I could see that she felt abandoned, betrayed by me. And I felt that she had treated me unjustly. Didn't even have room for compassion or understanding. But then I looked at what effect did that have on my life, because I could carry this for a very long time. And I was still part-time in the mortgage business, even though I was in ministry. And so I would go to all these different little conventions and stuff. And I was just like, oh God, I don't want to see her. I hope she's not here, right? Kind of idea. But as the years passed, my need softened. And that switch began to change because I integrated the story. I reframed the story. I softened the story. I let go of victimhood. And I allowed myself to learn from the story. What did I learn? Learn that the ego was really in charge. In many, many ways at that time. I learned that in order to really forgive, you must be humble. In order to find wholeness, you must be humble. And it's hard sometimes in our lessons. I know you all have stories. And that's what we're gonna do today. We're not gonna talk about our stories. Don't worry, no one has to tell their story in this ceremony. No one has to speak to it, but you do have to feel it. You're gonna retell it in your mind as we go through this process. You are going to feel the feelings. Then you can collapse it, retell the story from a new perspective, and then integrate it into healing, into every cellular part of your being. And that's how we find healing. That's how we find healing. We allow it to come to us. We don't force it on ourselves. Today's ceremony was developed by Colin Tipping, who wrote the book, based on a Native American tradition. You see, there's really power in the circle. And in the Lakota tradition, when anyone has a grievance, they call for a circle. And they stand in a circle, the person states their grievance, and they go around the circle to address the grievance, discuss it, add wisdom to it, talk about any misunderstandings, so that by the time the story ends up back at the very beginning, the Great Spirit has already healed whatever grievance was there. You see, there's power in that community. There's power in a community in sharing feelings, to know that you're not the only one, but you're not alone. And in our ceremony today, that's what we're going to do. We're going to know that what we stand in, what's happened to us, is that we aren't alone. Other people have had similar experiences. All right. Colin also realized that our European mind is not able to totally accept that kind of healing so easily. So he wrote down this philosophy, and it has worked for thousands of people. He has a 2-day workshop that he's created and a 4-day workshop that he's created. I have done the 2-day workshop, and that was plenty hard. I have not done the 4-day, although I imagine that after you walk away from that, you are like purely cleansed. But for our ceremony today, he has created 17 statements. And Judy and I will read the statements. And these statements cover almost everything, every kind of pain that can be inflicted upon a human being, or every kind of pain that we could inflict on another human being. And as we read the statements, if it applies to you, then you'll walk the circle. We'll instruct you on how to do that, which is really powerful. But I'll share more at the ceremony itself after we eat and come back up here for the circle. It is very healing. I want to close with this statement. Radical forgiveness is much more than the mere letting go of the past, which we know we cannot change. It is the key to creating the life that we want and the world that we want. It is the key to our own happiness and the key to world peace. It is no longer an option. It is our destiny. And those are powerful words, because think about this thought. Every single action that we see up there is caused by what? Anger, revenge, the need to get back at somebody. School shootings, the first one in Columbine, in Denver. The kids were being bullied and they felt justified, right? When we look at the Unabomber here in Montana, he was getting back at things that had happened to him in his past. Why is there violence? Because that's the only way people think that they can solve their problems. So these words ring so true to me, because it's the key to our own happiness and the key to world peace. Why do countries fight? If we forgave more at such a deeper level, we wouldn't have all this angst in our world. Or maybe not as much. So today I wanted us to prepare for our meditation and our time for reflection by singing a song. And it's number 72 in your hymnals if you want to have a hymnal. I have the words up here. Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Jeff, for playing that song. That song was written by Karen Drucker and Colin Tipping together. Kathy, you lead us. Follow her. Follow the bouncing ball. Yeah. Okay. So just kind of reflect on the words of the song. Just go into that sacred place within, when the divine resides within you. And just gently ask, open my eyes, open my ears, open my heart, Lord. Open me so that I may see the world as it should be. Open my eyes so I may see the glory everywhere, the bounty everywhere, that I may see the perfection in the imperfection, that I may learn those words of Jesus. Forgive them. They know not what they do. That I may take those words into my heart. That I let them rest there. And I begin to see each human being as a divine part of you, a divine part of this creation. I forgive those who have gone astray. I forgive those in my family who I may be estranged from, who may have hurt me deeply. I forgive friends, employers, who may have abandoned me in my greatest need. I forgive ex-partners for any suffering and hurt that they have caused. I also, Lord, stand in your presence today and ask for your forgiveness for those things that I have done wrong. Forgive me. I knew not what I did. Let's just breathe into that. Forgive me. I knew not what I did. Lay it on the altar. Let it go. See that white light, just dissolve it into nothingness, into pure love. Open my heart. Open it wide, God. Spirit, help me walk every day with new eyes, to see, new ears to hear, new words to speak. Let's just pause in silence for a moment. And let go today any burden that you might be carrying in this moment. See it dissolving in the white love of the divine. Breathe into that. Let it go. And so we come back into this time together, this time of community, fellowship. Our eyes are opened, our ears are opened, and our words are pure. And so we give thanks. We give thanks for all bounty, all beauty, all love, all capacity to forgive. And so it is. Amen. Amen. All right.
You don't have to do the forgiveness thing now?
Oh, yes.
Oh, son of a.
They're just ready, they're opened and ready to receive.
I tried.
I know. So we're gonna do the prayer of protection, and as these words, next month we're gonna be studying them each week as we go along. Roger gets the first one. And there's more to these words than we just repeat every single week, right? I say them all the time. This is my mantra. Whenever I'm scared, whenever I'm doubtful, whenever I have lack of energy, whatever it is, these words come to mind. So let's stand and say them together with power. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us.
The power of God protects us.
and the presence of God must rest.
Wherever
we are, God is, and all is well.
is swell, very swell. All right, our peace song.